Hey everybody, I'm Simon Rosenberg. I'm the president, yeah, that's okay. I'm the president of NDN, and I think that Raven and the team asked me to speak tonight to begin to set the table for our penultimate speaker a little bit later, President Bill Clinton. Clapping is okay, too. My connection to all this is that I was sort of present at the creation of the Clinton campaign back in 1992, and I'd like to think I was a little bit present at the creation of Netroots Nation and a lot of the work that went into creating what we know here today. I was an original member of the Clinton campaign back in 1992. I worked in the war room in the general election and was around when Clintonism as we know it today was really forged. And it was an extraordinary experience back then, but I think that it was matched in many ways by the work that we've all done together over the last 6 years. And for those of you who don't know, my organization back in 2003 and 2004, we were the first mainstream political organization to host Markos Militsas. At that point, a guy who ran a small blog in Northern California at one of our events in fall of 2003 in San Francisco, and I had the temerity to fly Markos all the way to Washington in the spring of 2004 to speak at his very first gathering in Washington in all of his political career. And Markos and Jerome then, in the year that Netroots Nation, or then Yearly Coast, was launched, invited me to write the foreword to their first book called Crashing the Gate, which I was honored to do. And so I've been around from the beginning of both what we knew to be the Clinton presidency and also this remarkable event, and I just wanted to reflect on these two things for a moment tonight. First of all, I think that one of the things that I think has been very clear to all of us who've been laboring in this movement in recent years, in this first half of the first year of the Obama presidency, is that our work is not done by just having elected Barack Obama in the fall of last year. That the idea of what a movement really is, that so much of what brought many of you to be involved in Netroots Nation and blogging and citizen activism was an anger about where our country was going and a disgust of the leadership that President Bush was providing. And there was a sense that if we just elected Democrats, that we would sort of solve that problem and get it all done. And I think what we've come to realize is that the work that we're all signing up for is really the work of a lifetime, that we're not going to solve any one set of problems right away and get it done and then retire for the next 20 or 30 years. And if you really look back at progressive politics over the last 70 years, whether it was all that FDR did and the challenge that he faced in his time about defeating totalitarianism and communism and fascism and establishing Social Security and all the remarkable challenges that he met in his day, or the work that Lyndon Johnson did in the 1960s along with John F. Kennedy to help bring about the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and to establish Medicare, or the work that Bill Clinton did in the 1990s, where we were able to oversee the largest economic expansion in all of American history. We're able to move from huge historic deficits to historic surpluses. We're able to cut taxes for tens of millions of working people and make the tax code much more progressive. We're able to raise median income, the average income of an average person, by over $8,000 during the Clinton tenure, and I could go on, is that he, in his day, faced a different set of challenges than Lyndon Johnson and John F. Kennedy had faced and what FDR had faced in previous days. And it reminds all of us, by his presence here tonight, that the work that we're involved in is a continuum, that a movement goes on over time, that even in this remarkable age with this remarkable leader, Barack Obama, and the challenges that he's decided to help us take on in healthcare and climate change and restoring broad-based prosperity and reforming immigration, all the things that we'll be working on, we know that at the end of those 8 years, we will not be done, that there'll be another set of extraordinary challenges, and the work of progressive politics and our movement will continue. And I think this is important as we look to hear from President Clinton later tonight, because I think that one of the things that I hope that we can all commit to is that this remarkable man, my political mentor, the person that really brought me into politics, who I was so inspired by for all of his 8 years as president, I hope that we can commit tonight to make sure that he is not sitting on the sidelines of this great battle for a better America and against this modern conservative movement, but very much at the front lines. And we'll be hearing from him a little bit later. The second thing I just want to reflect upon, and I hope he discusses this in just a moment when he speaks, is why it is that you matter so much. When I moved to Washington with President Clinton in January of 1993, and I was like many of you, I had come from the private sector, I had not been a lifer in politics. I made the choice, having been inspired by a particular candidate and his cause, to move into the public life, that when I moved to Washington in January of 1993, we were the first Democrats who had been in the White House in 12 years. And Jimmy Carter's administration had not been, let's say, all that successful during the time that he was there. And so it had really been all the way back to the 1960s since we had had a successful time in Washington. And what we found after 12 years of Reagan and Bush was what confronted us was something different than any other Democratic president had confronted, which was an extraordinarily robust, mature, well-funded conservative movement. This was a new thing. We didn't really understand it when we came into the White House in 1993 about what we were up against. And we all saw it play out in front of our eyes. The rise of Fox News and Rush Limbaugh, the legal challenges that constantly dogged the Clinton administration funded by right-wing institutions and think tanks, the extraordinarily robust talking points and political activity that we're all seeing now play out today in this debate. That stuff all was brand new. And David Brock writes about this very eloquently in his book. And it took us a long time to actually figure this out. And I know that one of the reasons that I got so excited back in 2003 when I first met Marcos and Jerome, and I first started reading the Dean blog every night. And to me, it really was the Dean Campaign's blog, where you saw average, everyday Americans blogging, just writing, people from small towns all over the country saying, I just gave $25 to Howard Dean tonight, the first time I had ever given money to a campaign, and I feel like I've taken a step to making my country better. And in my mind, what that effort became about, and I remember I was sitting up in my attic in my house late at night, obsessed with the Dean blog. My wife thought I'd gone crazy, but I was experiencing politics in real time, with real passion, with real people, making it clear that they wanted a chance to participate in their democracy and to make their country better, that they were dissatisfied with the path, and this is what Judd had said earlier, that the barrier to entry for average everyday people to get involved in the life of their democracy had been lowered. And what I realized at that moment was, man, did I wish that we had those people and these tools when we were fighting the conservatives during the Clinton era. And I know that the president, when he speaks tonight, is going to look around this room and wish that he had all of you fighting by his side the way that Barack Obama does now, because we didn't have the kind of tools that all of you have built. Not only the blogs, but all the organizations, this incredible ecosystem of center-left politics that has been created over the last 6 years, from the Huffington Post to Think Progress to Media Matters to the dozens and dozens of blogs that are represented here tonight. We are now at a different moment, I think, in our movement. For the last 6 years, what you guys did and what we all did together was extraordinary, right? We've built the beginning of what is a 21st century progressive movement. We helped elect Barack Obama with the largest margin a Democrat has gotten since 1964. We've seen Democrats in Congress having more ideological and political control in Washington since they've had since the 1960s. And how different that is from when Marcos first started blogging back in 2002 and 2003, when at that moment the conservatives had more ideological control of Washington since they'd had since the 1920s, that the Republican Party was a more dominant and ascendant force than it had been since before my father was born in 1932. These were dark circumstances and dangerous days for our country and for our politics. And because of you, and because of these organizations that we've built, because of the politicians that have shown leadership, look how much we have changed the country. But I think that the most important work that we have to do together is still in front of us, because now we have power, we have the trust of the American people, we have these modern institutions, we have tens of millions of Americans working side by side through your blogs and through the work, the communities that we've built to advance the country in ways that we never had before. Now it's not a time to reject the other side, but to use our imagination to imagine what kind of America we really are going to build together. How are we going to continue to innovate and build a growing and modern 21st century progressive movement? And I think that's what makes this gathering the most exciting of all the Netroots Nations gatherings that we've ever had. Because this is a time for us not to react, not to be defensive, but to imagine and inspire each other in what kind of America that we can build together. And so I want to close by saying two things. First, I want to thank all of you for giving President Clinton, who I think is one of the most, remember, we only elected 3 Democrats for 2 terms in the entire 20th century. So the man that's going to walk on stage in a few minutes is a rare bird, a rare breed, right? One of only 3 Democrats in the entire 20th century to be elected to 2 terms, who clearly left America and the world better than he found it, and was, I think, a remarkably successful president and an inspirational leader. So I want to thank you for helping put him not on the sidelines of this battle that we're all in, but very much at the front lines, because he's got a lot of years left and a lot of fight in him, and we're going to hear this in a few minutes. But I also want to say to you, my second point, is I want to thank all of you. This has been a remarkable journey we've been on together, and I hope that as much as we are connecting with the struggle, the fact that the right is not going away, that this is the battle of our lifetime, not just the battle of a particular part of a decade, that you're going to make the decision to sign up for this battle, not just through 2009 and 2010, but in whatever way you choose to fight, because we are stronger together. And I know that when I got into Democratic politics in the 1980s, when we imagined a campaign, what we saw in our mind's eye was a tarmac hit by a candidate, a 30-second spot, and 200 kids in a headquarters fighting every day for that candidate. Now the model of our politics is 10 million people going to work every day, side by side, as partners in the fight and not just donors to the cause. Frankly, friends, that's a model that you created. That's a better model than the model that we had before. Our democracy is well served, and I want to end by saying thanks to all of you here tonight. Thank you, everybody.